got lost. Would you like to sit here? Now, we're going to have to just stick with time. Hang on. 10 minutes.
Oh, it can go on. Take less.
All right, that's fine. Can I just pop that down?
Oh, sure.
All right, we're good to go? Sure. Excellent. Right. Good afternoon, everybody. For those of you who are grabbing a coffee or milling around, please come and join us. We've got a great session now, co-hosted by Meat and Livestock Australia and the Department of Agriculture, Fisheries and Forestry. So today's session is titled "The Role of Livestock in Meeting Our Global Climate, Food Security and Nutrition Goals." And I'd like to welcome our panel members today. I will introduce them one by one. I'll introduce myself. My name is Donna Bennett and I am the Regional Agriculture Counsellor for Australia and based in Dubai. So I cover Middle East and North African countries for the Department of Agriculture, Fisheries and Forestry. First of all, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners on the land across we're meeting today, and I'd like to pay my respects to elders past and present. And I extend the respect to those Indigenous people from all over the globe. This afternoon, we'll be hearing from this exciting panel on the role of livestock to combat global warming, contribute to global food and nutrition security, and to regional livelihoods, and recognising that global challenge will need a global and local solution. Collaboration will be critical in sustainable development of this sector and to find innovative solutions to support climate-smart outcomes. I'll introduce you now to our speakers. First of all, we have Tanawat Tenzin, who is the Director of Animal Production and Health Division at the Food and Agriculture Organisation of the United Nations, FAO, in Rome. Tanawat also serves as an Acting Director at the Joint FAO IAEA Centre of Nuclear Techniques in Food and Agriculture in Vienna and Austria. Next panel member is Julia Waite, is the CN30 Project Manager for Meat and Livestock Australia. In her role as CN30 Project Manager, she is responsible for identifying high-impact research and development opportunities that deliver progress towards the red meat sector's net zero target by 2030. Next, we have Naomi Wilson, who is Head of Environment and Sustainability for Australia's largest integrated cattle and beef producer for Australian Agricultural Company. Naomi is taking a leading role in bringing a sustainable approach to beef production in Northern Australia. And next but not least, Ty Beale from Global Alliance for Improved Nutrition is Global Nutrition and Food Systems Scientist dedicated to achieving healthy and sustainable diets for all. Through his research, he examines dietary patterns and their impacts on human health and the environment. And last but not least, Carolyn Emond is the Director General of the International Dairy Federation. Carolyn is also on the governance bodies of the Global Agenda for Sustainable Livestock and the Livestock Environmental Assessment and Performance. Welcome, everybody. Firstly, I'd like to invite Tanawat for some opening comments and present the role of livestock as the key driver for sustainable development in agriculture, as well as how the sector can reduce its environmental impacts and become more efficient in the use of resources.
Thank you very much for the invitation. Actually, my colleagues and also myself prepare the statement to share with you, but it's better to talk with you directly what I'm thinking, what we would like to work together for better futures tomorrow. I think over the week, even the past year, we know already about the role of livestock to make contributions to food security, nutrition, livelihoods, and others. But since we are here at COP, we know that the main issue that we are discussing here is about climate change. And that's why we also need to link ourselves, because I assume some of you working in livestock sectors. I can see from all panelists. And also some of you working linked to nutrition as well. And that's why the work that livestock that we're going to discuss in terms of contribution of livestock to nutrition, to food securities is a key. But in the meantime, also we need to discuss about trade-off. Because we know that when last 2 days when we launched at FAO Pavilions, we just launched the new report, Pathway Toward Lower Emissions for Livestock Productions. And we know that by 2050, livestock productions, meat, milk, egg, will increase by 20% at least to feed almost 10 billion people. And from the report as well, it has shown that by 2050, if we don't do anything, the emission will reach 9 billion tons from livestock sectors. But we also highlight to all of you that all solution, options, innovations is available. And all the solution, if we really take action from today, and by 2050 we can reduce up to 1.9 billion tons. And even though we can do more, because over the next years, I'm sure that we will have more solution, we will have more innovation, we will have more technologies. Because we know that all our producers, farmers, research institutions, and private sectors, they are working to make sure that we can bring solution for our planet, for a healthy planet and healthy people. And that's why together we make sure that we can bring down the emissions together. But in the meantime, when we are talking about nutrition, we're talking about food securities. It's just only in April this year at FAO, we just launched the new report on the contribution of animal source food to healthy diets. Because my colleagues and my speakers who are going to talk more on nutrition can give you more detail. But we know that in the meantime, when we are talking about animal source food, we also has been criticized. We know that some regions, some countries may have a high consumptions, but also the other countries, other regions that have a very low consumption as well. Even though when we put in our model, when you're talking about the consumption of animal source food, that you can manage to reduce maybe just only around 300 million tons only. And that's why once the countries and regions that never have tried meat, milk before or have a very low consumptions, because we know that animal source food is a nutritious food. But we also need to be aware that when we're talking about healthy diets, we need to talk what we eat, how we eat, and how much we eat. And that's why when we talk about healthy diets, we also need to talk about balanced healthy diets. And you can see more that the new research that talking about we are losing our muscle every day when you're getting older and older. And animal source food or animal protein is the protein that can help you to keep your muscle when you get older, which actually other kind of protein cannot. But sure that when we're talking about science and evidence-based. And that's why this year when at FAO, we organized the Global Conference on Sustainable Livestock Transformation in September. We're talking about Sustainable Livestock Transformation Initiative that will focus on building science and evidence-based narrative to advocate sustainable livestock. We're talking about sharing experience and best practices about sustainable livestock from different sectors. We're talking about how we're going to increase responsible investment for sustainable livestock. Because the next 20 years, we're sure that livestock is a part of nature, it's a part of agri-food system. And I'm sure that we cannot imagine if tomorrow we don't have cows, we don't have chickens, we don't have pigs, what will happen in this planet. Because we know that we still continue to feed people. We still need to bring nutritious food, healthy diets to our people. And that's why the role of livestock is very important. The role of animal source food is very important. And that's why we will continue to talk about sustainable livestock transformation. We will bring all the knowledge and experience that you have and to share best practices around the world. And the Global Conference on Sustainable Livestock Transformation will not be a single event, but will be part of the UN Food System Summit stock taking. And every 2 years, everyone will bring result. Everyone will bring more solutions. And we can showcase and highlight that we're making progress together. And I'm sure that all of you will join us to make sure that we will continue our work, to make sure that tomorrow we will have a better planet. And tomorrow we will have a healthy people and healthy planet together. And to make sure that livestock is a part of solution. And livestock is a part of agri-food system. And that's why we need to continue our work. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Tanawat, and I love your passion. Yes. Okay, now what we're going to do now is I will pose some questions to the panel and I'll sit over there. And then after that, we'll go to the audience. So that's how we'll roll with it. So any of you thinking about questions that may change as different questions come out from the, or different answers come out from the panel as we go. So here we go. A bit multitasking because I'm changing slides as well. Asking questions, changing slides, making sure Tanawat sticks to 10 minutes. Perfect. So impressed. Okay. I'm loving these slides. Thank you, Emily. All right. So I'm going to pose first question, and I'll ask Julia to respond to this first question, but I would also invite other panel members to come into these answers too. So it's not just one question, one person. So, Julia, how can the livestock industry strike a balance between meeting the nutritional demands for a growing global population and implementing practices to reduce emissions and mitigate environmental impact?
Sure, a few parts to that question, all equally important. I think for our target, we recognise that we need to engage the Australian farmers as allies and not antagonists in helping us reduce emissions of production. I heard a great quote from a dairy farmer the other night on one of the other panels who said, if we try and talk to farmers about climate mitigation without talking about profit, we're just happy activists. So I think we have this real opportunity in our communication to bring them on that journey with us, since most of the action is going to require them to be engaged and do the work on farm And in Australia, graziers manage 50% of Australia's land mass, so a huge opportunity to sequester carbon in trees and vegetation there. The second piece of that is our MLA has a portfolio of $140 million going into emissions reduction and carbon storage research. That's all going to deliver outcomes over the decade. But today, whether you're running a property like what Naomi is managing at AACO, huge extensive properties, or you're a herder with 10 cows, managing for emissions on farm today looks like production efficiency. And so that's a real opportunity for us to kind of use the metrics that farmers are really keen on paying attention to, drivers of yield, drivers of profit, number of head, number of kilos, and connect that to reduced emissions intensity per kilo of product. So really engaging them in the language and the metrics they're already paying attention to, making this process a little less fuzzy when we're trying to engage them on this journey of climate mitigation. So we can ultimately continue to produce the red meat protein that the market is demanding with a lower carbon footprint.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you. And would anyone like to add to that conversation? Thanks, Naomi.
I might just pick up from there. As a company that's producing beef in Australia, we operate across 6.5 million hectares or 16 million acres in Northern Australia producing beef that we export globally. We released our sustainability framework in 2021, but that was not the start of the sustainability journey for us. We've been working for many, many years on improving production efficiency and making our business as sustainable as we can. When we released that framework, we made a commitment to taking action on our impact on climate and identified a number of challenges that we face in doing that. So we've started building on a really efficient production system. So in Australia, we produce some of the most efficient beef in the world in terms of emissions. And in AACO, we've had a really strong focus for a long time on first taking a nature-first approach to beef production. So really making sure that we manage the native grasslands that we grow our beef in really well, and making sure that that grassland is resilient. And in doing that, that puts the best nutrition in front of our animals, and that nutrition then enables them to express the genetics that we've developed through our breeding and genetics program, and to be incredibly efficient as a herd. We're building on that now. So over the last 2 years, we've taken two of the key challenges that we see, and the first one is around direct methane abatement. And we've been working over the last 2 years to start to commercialise some of the products that are coming onto the market. So we completed earlier this year a project looking at Asparagopsis as a methane abatement technology, and we're continuing that work moving forward, looking at how we actually deliver those abatement products to animals in our herd. The other key challenge for us has been around sequestration in our landscape and understanding that potential in a vast landscape where the data on that is incomplete. So we've been building tools, integrated model paired with satellite to help us to understand carbon flows and stocks in our landscape and where the opportunities for sequestration are. So coupling that with the work that we're doing around methane abatement, we are building towards a beef product that is supporting future climate cooling.
Great. Thank you so much. What I think I'll do now is moving to a slightly different tact to bring in some dairy conversations and some more protein conversations. So, Carolyn, the work that you're doing is doing it across a global context. So how does the work you are doing contribute to the global and equitable solutions that support developed and emerging countries' priorities and supports our global commitments on nutrition and food security challenges?
Thank you. Actually, the International Dairy Federation is actually one of the oldest international organizations. We were created 128 years ago. So before FAO, before Codex, before all of that, the global dairy sector has been working together on milk quality, on safety, on hygiene. So the working together, the collaboration is actually what we are. IDF is a multi-stakeholder platform where we bring all the expertise from farmers to processor to researcher to government to work together on tools to make sure that we can address different topics. Whatever it is nutrition, whatever it is climate action, that's what we do as an organization. And actually, when people say we need to do action, I'm saying we've been doing action for years. IDF created its first methodology, LCA calculation for green gas emission in the dairy sector in 2010. We actually updated in 2015, and we had a newest version in 2022. So that tool has been existed for a long time. So we've been working. We have a lot of work that has been done in collaboration within the sector, but also with colleagues from Livestock. You mentioned in my biography the Global Alliance for Sustainable Livestock, the Livestock Environmental Performance Assessment. So those are tools where we work together to build methodology, guidelines, to help the sector to continue on its path to improvement. So I think that's important that we keep that in mind, particularly in a forum like that, where sometimes we feel under pressure. But the reality is that we need to be proud of what we've done, what we've accomplished, and what we continue to accomplish. Because we have a lot of commitment to continue. We have a lot of examples of what we do, what we can do. And actually, at IDF, we have our Innovation Awards. And actually, the winner this year from the climate category is from Canada. It's a partnership between Lactanet and CMAX. They've been collecting data for 10 years, where actually they will be able, with breeding, to select cattle and cows that actually have a less emission. So through breeding, you will be selecting animals. So there's all kinds of things we can do to reduce the impact on methane. We know you can have animal health, animal care, animal nutrition, there's all kinds of things. But breeding is part of it. So that's one of the latest innovations of people that have been working hard for years to find those ideas. So there's plenty there. What we need is financing to scale up. What we need is inspiration, and that's what we do at IDF. We share our stories. We have a dairy sustainability outlook. You can go on our website. Every year we publish it, stories from around the world, so you can be inspired. What our colleagues are doing in India relating to manure. So how can you valorize manure and make energy out of it? So then you can have farmers, you can have villagers, and at the same time, you actually have a value to your waste. So there's all kinds of activities that we do as a sector and we do globally in collaboration.
That's very exciting. For that long, wow. Yep. See, I'm getting educated as I listen. So Ty, let's get down to some nutritional facts. So how do you see the role of livestock products in addressing malnutrition? And what are the key nutritional benefits that should be emphasised?
Yeah, so first of all, GAIN is an organization that seeks to improve nutrition for all, especially the most vulnerable. And so we work in lower income contexts. And so we have direct programs in Africa and South Asia where consumption of animal source foods is far below amounts that would be required to meet nutrient needs. And so one of the things that we know from recent evidence is that micronutrient deficiencies, so vitamins and minerals, are widespread worldwide. They're particularly high, of course, in countries without access to healthy, diverse diets, without access to animal source foods. So we think about specific countries, Cote d'Ivoire, India, Cameroon, others, for example. 9 in 10 women, 9 in 10 have at least one micronutrient deficiency. So the deficiencies that are most common are often iron, zinc, nutrients that are most available in forms that the body can use in animal sources. So in low-consuming contexts, we really emphasize the role of animal source foods like meat, eggs, and dairy, and fish to meet some of the core micronutrients that are lacking in the diet.
Okay, thank you.
If I could just jump on that, the stakes are a lot higher in some of the low and middle income countries that Ty might be focused on. But even in Australia, last year we ran a consumer insights survey of about 1,300 people that showed that for the first time in 20 years almost, we had the largest proportion of respondents who said they were increasing their consumption of red meat, despite perhaps what we might guess was occurring in people's diets. And the major reason, 75% of those people said that was because of nutritional concerns, wanting to access more iron and protein. And I'm sure the dietary recommendations differ country to country, but in Australia, it's actually a very I would say, modest recommendation: 455 grams of cooked lean red meat per week. So that could either be 2 really big steaks, or I would say a very modest portion of red meat in a meal 3 or 4 times a week. So some of us might be well and truly overhitting that mark, and others perhaps might just fall below that on a week-to-week basis without paying a lot of attention to it. So I think what we're talking about is quite an achievable recommended daily intake to get all the benefits that Ty's referred to.
I'd like to know how many grams is in a tomahawk?
Shared between 2 people.
Tomahawk, what is a tomahawk, Scott? 2 kilos of meat on a bone, a cow bone. Yeah, beef. It's called a tomahawk.
So bring 6 friends is what you're saying, Donna.
It's like a T-bone on steroids or something. I don't know. It's just amazing. I digress, sorry. It's late in the day and I need my barbecue. And my red wine. All right. So you've all said some really interesting comments. Tanawat, have you got any comments, you know, across this panel of what you're hearing or just now with those questions that I put to the panel? Is there anything else that you'd like to add?
Okay. We know that over the next years, we will have a lot of pleasures and also a lot of questions from consumers, publics, policy makers. We'll ask farmers, producers, private sectors. And that's why I would like to have the question, how are we going to join our effort and also to make progress together? Because I can give you an example right now when we presented the new report. All the report is based on modeling. But now we try to work with the countries, the sectors directly. How are we going to get the data, what you have, as you mentioned? And we can demonstrate that all the data that you have, and we can bring all the sectors together and to highlight that we have evidence. And also science really tell the result itself. Because people always ask about evidence, and that's why we need to work together with all the sectors, the countries, and also with the international organization, especially as my colleagues already mentioned. IDF worked about dairy sectors for 120 years. But now we also need to do more since our consumers need something more than before. And that's why I'm sure that with your expertise, with your experience, we can showcase and highlight that we can make progress.
Thank you. So balancing economic performance with net zero is a key consideration for many industries. So how do we ensure that investments in sustainable practices not only reduce emissions but also contribute to the economic viability of the livestock industry? So Naomi, would you like to add to that?
So we don't see those two things as being at odds. When we look at where we're investing in our business and our landscape, we always look for that win-win outcome. So where can we get really good productivity outcomes, efficiency outcomes, and how can we also drive climate positive outcomes through that investment? And so really good examples for developing infrastructure to better manage cattle through our vast landscapes gives us really good productivity outcomes. We get boosts in weaning rates and animal productivity through that. That also delivers for us gains in the health in the landscape, so improved land condition, improved pasture growth, and that drives then carbon sequestration in that landscape. So for us, the key is looking for where that win-win comes from in those investments. It is a little bit more challenging when it comes to tackling methane abatement directly. That's one of the biggest challenges that we face moving forward, is how we make that cost-effective for us as a business. And The challenge there and the approach that we're taking is how do we partner and collaborate across the supply chain and more broadly across the industry to leverage investment and to cost share so that all the cost doesn't fall on producers themselves, and to then drive multiple value through that supply chain so that everybody along the supply chain is benefiting from that investment on ground in productivity and methane abatement.
And I might draw on your knowledge, Caroline, with the methane abatement strategies through your collaborations globally. Is there something that you would mind sharing with us in that space?
Yes, what I could share first is the strong commitment from the dairy sector, dairy processor, many dairy organizations around the world. It has been since a long time, but we have what we call the Dairy Declaration Rotterdam, was signed between IDF and FAO in 2016, which is a commitment to sustainability and to reporting and measuring. And we also have, since 2021, the Pathways to Dairy Net Zero, which is an initiative, again, where we actually discuss and look on the science and how you can reduce those emissions. So that work has been ongoing for quite a while and is continuing to do so. Maybe if you allow me, I think one thing I'd like to add is that IDF support the FAO position that when we talk about footprint, whenever it is environmental footprint or carbon footprint, it is important to recognize the nutrition element. Because at the end of the day, not all food are the same. They are not as the same nutrient density. And you cannot be comparing footprint just on the basis if you don't take into consideration the nutrition aspect. And I think that's what's missing a bit in this discussion that we've been having for the last 10 days, is people are comparing different things that are not comparable. And as a group, we need to make sure that that aspect of nutrition density is recognized when we talk about footprint. Because we do, like every sector, livestock has a footprint. But what we talked a bit about less is about the end print. Because at the end of the day, there's also benefits. There's nutrition benefits. There's benefits on I talked about biomass earlier, on biodiversity, on soil health, on livelihood, on women empowerment. Those are all contributions that the livestock sector are doing, and that unfortunately we haven't talked enough this week. So I just wanted to take an opportunity to mention it.
Thank you. And I know, Ty, you were itching to get
Yeah,
to that.
I think that's a great point. You know, all of those areas are essential. One of the things that we're doing to bring more nutritionally relevant metrics for environmental impact assessments is to really look at the holistic nutritional value of each food so that we're not comparing, you know, a kilogram of white rice to a kilogram of beef to a kilogram of dark leafy greens. We're looking at the actual nutritional value within those foods. We know that nutritional value varies quite a bit between foods, and so we're starting to do that, and I think we've seen a lot of work out of FAO. In 2021, there was a report on nutritional life cycle assessment with really brought attention to that need, and I think we're just really starting to see those metrics come out. So I think that's the future.
Very exciting science. Now, that's probably enough from my little question booklet. I'd like to open it up to any of the audience members who would like to ask a question. Yes, Sue, and then a gentleman just behind. Yep. Okay.
So, Sue Ogilvie, I'm the Program Director for Farming for the Future, which is trying to get the evidence for environmental performance relationships with business performance. So my question is that in Australia there's considerable opportunity to invest in trees on farms as a really important part of decarbonisation, but also part of the animal welfare picture of shade and shelter. And so my question to the panel is, how powerful do you see those synergies of opportunities to both address abatement, address animal welfare, and also address the carbon question?
So I guess the first disclaimer for me is that the vast majority of the landscape that we're operating in is a grassland, a native grassland and shrublands, and it's undisturbed. So we 98% deforestation-free footprint on our landscape. having said that, there's most certainly a role for tree planting and recovery of native vegetation across the beef estate in Australia, and there is plenty of evidence to show that planting trees in landscapes that have been historically cleared, or even managing regrowth in a way that balances those biodiversity outcomes in those landscapes, is beneficial for biodiversity and for cattle production. Benefits to soil health and therefore pasture nutrition. We're seeing great outcomes in terms of being able to demonstrate good biodiversity in the ag estate as a result of that as well. So it's a win-win.
Sorry, I needed a moment to process your question, fighting over the closing up the coffee shop noise out the back. But I think we see carbon sequestration as a really important strategy to buy us time while we're waiting for some of the more direct emissions interventions to come to the market. So on our net zero target, which had a baseline of 2005, Australia's red meat sector has a 64.8% net emissions reduction progress indicator. The majority of that is vegetation regrowth in land under red meat management. So while that's great, it's great, at the same time, our enteric methane emissions of production have stayed relatively flat. So we know that if we're going to deliver on long-term climate mitigation and meet the expectations of the supply chain, consumers, we're going to need to focus on that. And so that's where I see sequestration as being a really valuable lever for us to, not only reduce net emissions, enrich the land condition, have other co-benefits like animal welfare, reduced erosion. We need those technologies like methane additives to resolve the direct emissions too.
Yeah, maybe for the dairy sector, I would say that in our case, reducing the number of animals is definitely an important target. And improving productivity per animal has actually been the way to address and do that win-win. Because actually it is less animal, less on the land, less on the water, less emission, less feed, so less cost for the farmers. So at the end of the day, it is a win-win solution. And in the high-income country, that improvement of efficiency per animal has been done already. In some low and middle-income country, it's in progress. And they're working hard. But again, you have to go, if you take India, where we actually need to work with millions of farmers that own few animals, and their productivity is a bit lower. And that's where there's a lot of work that has been done right now. If we take the National Dairy Development Board in India, for example, on portion ration for animal feed to make sure it's the right balance that actually make the animals, animal care, animal welfare, all of that training, capacity building is being done in developing country right now, and it takes a bit longer. But that productivity is that win-win we're looking for, because it's going to make an impact. And we saw it because we saw it in developed countries. So that's definitely one of the big targets right now.
Okay, thank you. And sir, your question.
Hello, I am Maximiliano from Paraguay, big country as well. And in our country, we have currently a debate about carbon credits, soil health, and obviously the beef industry. So I want to ask you, what are your stance about the new metric, global warming potential start, and the possibility of soil-based carbon credits, as you talk a lot about carbon sequestration under the Article 6?
Sorry, there's a couple parts to your question there. I just clarify that the net progress achieved with Australia's sequestration has nothing to do with credits, so no formal program. Does anyone want to speak on soil carbon? No. Great. Oh. No? Yeah.
Tanawat?
Okay, actually I combine two questions at the same time, because we know that all the mitigation measures, there's no single mitigations that can solve all the problems. And that's why when we're talking about mitigation measures and solution, it's a combination of actions. And we know that our producers and farmers, when you work in the farms, they don't talk just only about animal health or animal feed, but they talk about all this value chain to make sure at the end farmers can get benefit, they can get profit, and they can survive. And that's why it linked to your question when you're talking about our soil carbon sequestration. It also one of solution in the metrics. And even though in our FAO report, we also put the component of the soil sequestration and also in terms of biocircular economy, which actually right now in many countries are working a lot on biocircular economy, or even though the issues of agroforestry. And that's why now in many countries in your regions, when you're talking about grazing with trees, now they have a lot of solution and also best practices that animals also can keep with trees and forests. And also it's a core benefit between forests and also with livestock. And that's why we can say that there are several systems. When you're talking about agriculture or livestock system, all the system is complement to each others. And that's why it's about balancing our nature. If we know that we produce more, perhaps we know that it may have a negative impact. And that's why we may need to change a bit to make sure that we still can feed people. We can bring better nutrition, better food security for people. But at the same time, also we try to reduce the impact, environmental impact, and also climate, and also build better climate resilience for all. And that's why it's a kind of balance and balancings. Yep, thank you.
Oh, we have a question.
If you don't mind,
Yep.
I would like to inform you next year, if possible, that if we can make it happen, at FAO, we also, after the Global Conference on Sustainable Livestock Transformation in September, one of the recommendations that we received from the members and also for all our stakeholders, we will launch the Sustainable Livestock Transformation digital platform that all the countries, all the sector can share your best practices. From dairy sectors, from beef sectors. In Australia, you're doing a lot about beef production, sustainability, dairy, and so on. In New Zealand, in Canada, in US, in Latin America, in India. Because recently, I just received the data set from India, National Dairy Development Board of India, about 40,000 record of dairy farmers. And when we validate in our model, it really shows that when you put all the measures, it really can reduce the impact. And now we are expecting to get about million record of farmers from India. But now we are also, we don't talk about just only emerging market, but we also have to talk with the countries from the developed market as well. Because you're having data. And now last week I just talked with New Zealand, and when I return, I will talk with your representative in Australia. And then every country can share. And then we can bring all our, let's say, the evidence and to highlight to our consumers, public, and policy makers. Because we need to talk about science and evidence. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. And we had a question from another gentleman. Thank you.
Could you hear me? Thank you very much for organizing such wonderful event. Thank you very much for organizing such wonderful event. I came from the land of livestock. The country is Somalia. It is economy based on agriculture, particularly livestock. 60% of our GDP comes from alone one sector, which is livestock. Contributes food, contributes 70% of our livelihood of our population, as well as, I would like to say, income, and as well as food security, which is, you cannot imagine what we say in Somali language, at ya'ano means dairy and meat, which is our life. And so what I would like to say, when you look at, Somalia is one of the most vulnerable country for climate change, because nothing else but it is economy. Their livelihood is based on agriculture, which if would have been a livestock, crop, fisheries, and all forestry product. And this is we are very susceptible for climate change vulnerability and variability, as well as on the issues. When you look at, and I like the way he said during the discussion, we understood the livestock contribution of the green emission, carbon, but yet we recognize as well as we are very poor countries, and not our only livestock contributes this. This is global, and we have to think more globally. I agree with your team of the panelists. The reason to work together is very important. Working together is very important to think global agenda and to balance the need of our earth. It is very important. Yet, we would like to introduce the countries climate resilience livestock or climate resilience technology agriculture, which can decrease our contribution, as well as our production and productivity will also increase. But the country, when you look at, after 30 years of situation, civil war, not yet stable, the country would like to revitalize partners such as yours. And that's the reason I visited this wonderful. I wish it was during the early morning I came and looked at the whole thing is how they are going. But it is a late event, but yet I'm here, and we are looking forward to partner with you, your contributions as well as we know FAO, very reputable organization in Somalia during all the difficult time, and as well as I understand Australian contribution for our country, as well as for not only our country, for the whole Africa, when it comes to knowledge, when it comes to introducing climate technology and all the things. So I'm here for you guys. I would like to thank you. It wasn't a question, it was more about comment.
Thank you. That's. Did you want to respond there?
Whilst our industries look very different, our landscapes in many parts look quite similar, particularly in some of the savanna, harsh landscapes of the north of Australia can be quite similar to places in Africa. So we do hope that some of our investment in particularly land-based research, feed-based, soils, climate adaptation, resilience could translate. So we've got a lot to share, but also a lot to learn too between the two regions.
And I'm very humbled by your comments. I've had a tremendous opportunity personally to live in Indonesia and now here. But in Indonesia, I experienced that smallholder farm concept, and incredible how the smallholders, they may have 1 or 2 cows, a couple of goats, and myriads of ducks or chickens, but that's their livelihood. They feed their families. The whole village supports each other, and solutions for our future must be people-centric, and it must involve the people that grow the food. And you've said it all, but we can now share our knowledge. We've got tremendous connection globally like never before, and it's getting faster and better and more intricate and articulated like never before. So I think we've got the perfect opportunity to collaborate and connect, like phone a farmer, like just give us a call. It just becomes simple as connecting. So thank you for your comments, and I'd like to, Tanawat would like to make another comment.
Thank you very much, colleagues from Somalia. Actually, yesterday I just met your Minister of Livestock and Agricultures and Irrigations from Somalia at FAO Pavilion. And one of the issues that we discussed as well, because I also have colleagues from, I think, Ethiopia, if I can remember, all Somalia together. I think we met before. We know that one of the issues, how we're going to support young farmers and young producers, is one of the key issues. And also in Horn of Africa, which actually the situation of the conflict is one of the the difficult situation. But anyway, we know that like your countries or Sudan and Ethiopia, which actually is a source of animals and livestock that export to these regions, to Yemen, to Saudi Arabia, for example, like in your countries, you have around 18 million people with 13 million camel, which actually is, only camel is perhaps one of the largest camel productions in the world. But anyway, others, yeah, and also others are local cattle and so on, which actually I think is the country have potential. And that's why I think it's also in terms of nutrition and food securities, and also in terms of rural development is one of the key for Africa. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tanawat. And thank you, sir, again. And thank you for everybody. I know we're dwindling now, so I'm going to wrap it up. So I'd like to just invite the panel to just give some closing remarks. If I can take that was your closing remark, Tanawat? Or would you like another closing remark afterwards? We'll go to Julia. Yeah. Okay. Julia, closing remarks.
I think what I'd like to see people leaving this conference or into the future is that they have trust and confidence in the environmental credentials of the red meat sector, so they can feel free to feel good about eating red meat protein if they choose to do so. In some as Thanawat's mentioned, in some communities we may have overconsumption, in others not enough, but in the middle we have a lot of waste as well. And so I think rather than really simplistic conversations about, do we have meat in our food system or not, do we need to cut it back, I think a more interesting, complex and nuanced discussion would be about equity of distribution, reducing food waste, and just recognising that not all production systems are created equal, and there are merits and detractors about all different systems. So having that deeper conversation about where we can derive our protein and make sure it gets to the right places.
Thanks, Naomi. No one next?
I'm still thinking about your comments. I see some really significant possibilities for the entire global community if we work together to solve problems collaboratively, and share resources and share knowledge and learn from each other. And I think that's probably the key step moving forward is strong collaboration around making a change to really unlock the potential of the livestock industry to deliver climate positive outcomes.
Thanks, Naomi. And Ty?
I think I just want to highlight how drastically different consumption of red meat, processed meat is across the world. So in higher income contexts, processed meat consumption is very common. That can come down for health and for environmental benefits. But when you actually look at unprocessed red meat, best modeled estimates actually suggest that Eastern and Central Europe and Central Asia have the highest consumption, even higher than high-income countries. And when you look at Sub-Saharan Africa, South Asia, it's actually very, very low. So I think one thing that we can all kind of hopefully agree on and work towards is really trying to get at equitable distribution, equitable access to these foods so that those who choose to consume them can do so. There's huge inequities globally, and I think that we need to work towards making access to healthy foods, which include red meat, a part of that.
I'd say that nutrition security and climate action are both priorities, and livestock can actually be part of the solution for both. So you don't have to choose between one or the other. On the contrary, they actually link. And what I can say is that from the dairy sector perspective, the global dairy sector and the organization themselves are committed to sustainability. They are committed to climate action. They have in place action programs rolling around the world. And that is important that we celebrate that and we encourage so we can actually continue working together in actually nourishing the world.
Thank you. And don't know what last... Oh, you've changed your mind. Lucky we've got...
After listening to my
minutes.
panelists, I just would like to have the last words. We believe that we have solution, and we believe that we bring solution. And we trust on all of you and all of you who are sitting with us that we can make progress together. And I'm sure that at the end, we will take action. And tomorrow we will see result. And I'm sure that through all the work that FAO working with members and stakeholders, farmer, producer, and private sectors, we need to show our result, and we need to communicate and echo our voice together. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, and thank you all the panel. If you'd like to grip your hands together and appreciate our panel members today. Really great conversations. I've learnt quite a lot, and I hope you have too. Food for thought, so to speak, and happy Food, Agriculture and Water Day. There's still time left to have that tomahawk with the red wine. But I will give a plug for MLA being co-host. There is a scanned QR codes available on the end of each, or during the, where is it, on the rows? Yeah, so they're all over the place, so we'll leave those out there for you. But again, thank you everybody, and again, thanks for the panel for being so collegiate. We've got a bright future ahead, haven't we, folks? And very good that we can collaborate and connect. I think that's key. So thanks again, everyone, and enjoy the rest of your evening.